What's up, everybody? Chef Dad here, just an average dad who loves to make amazing meals for his family and friends. Today, we're gonna go over how easy it is to make barbecue pulled pork. So, what we're gonna need. I picked up a 5-pound pork butt from my guy Johnny G's in Bloomingdale. Does amazing work with any type of meat, sausage, chicken, anything you need. Go check him out. Bloomingdale, Illinois, Johnny G's Meats Deli. All right, so I have my 5-pound pork butt. I have some brown sugar, adobo, mesquite rub, amber barbecue chipotle rub, garlic powder, sea salt, and then of course mojo. So all my powder is going to be for the rub on the exterior. We're going to do that after we inject it. For the mojo portion of it, put it into a cup, get yourself an injector. Pick it up at Jewel, anywhere, okay? Any grocery store carries these. I've already filled it up. What I want to do is, if you've never injected meat before, really easy, nothing to be scared about. All you're going to do is you're going to take several spots on the pork. You're just going to stick the needle as far in as you can and just give it a good squeeze and just get that juice right into it, okay? The more spots that you pick to inject around the pork, the more flavor you're going to have. Okay, we're going to lock all this flavor into the fibers of the meat, and as it cooks, it's going to disperse itself, and then it's going to help break down the meat, and it's also going to give you an amazing flavor. Okay, as you inject the pork, you're going to see it rise. That means that the liquid is actually getting trapped within the fibers, and it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. So for about 5 pounds, I'm going to use a full glass of mojo here. As you can see, some of the seasonings get stuck in the needle, so it makes it just a little bit harder to grab. So if that happens, just give it a good push out. Get some more. There we go. All right. A couple more spots. Okay. Make sure that's nice in there. Okay. So I've used pretty much almost an entire glass to inject. Not that hard. Come back, I'm gonna do a little bit more. Just to make sure I get all my angles covered here. And if you don't get a whole lot in the injector, that's okay too. Just keep going back for it. Okay. We'll go one more round. And again, just go all the way around the pork. Don't be shy. Get in there. Get in deep. Maybe not so deep for a few of them. Maybe just surface injections. As long as you get the mojo into the meat. All right, so we're done with this. That's how easy it was. Gonna get rid of that. All right, so now that I injected the meat, my seasoning is inside. Okay, pick it up. Give it a good rub down. Now what I want to do is I'm gonna grab some oil. I'm going to use avocado oil for this one today. So I'm just going to put a thin layer of avocado oil in here. Rub that around. This will help all the rub stick to it. Because I want to make sure I get a nice layer on the outside. Alright, so now that I have that done, come back in. I'm going to start out with my salt. Now don't forget, the seasoning that we're putting on the outside is only going to cover the inside. So you want to be generous with it. Because as you start to shred it, when it's done, all the seasonings from the outside will start mixing with the inside. And we know that the inside already has the mojo we injected. So I'm going to start with my salt. And again, nice layer of salt on the outside. All right, got my salt. Move on to my garlic powder. Again, nice layer all the way around, because then what we're going to do is once we have all our seasoning on, we're going to pat it onto the meat. All right, garlic powder's on. Come in with some adobo. Now, adobo I'm not going to go crazy on. I just want some of the seasoning. All right, there we go. Now my mesquite, because we're doing a barbecue pulled pork, I want to make sure I get a nice layer of mesquite, my chipotle barbecue rub, and then of course my brown sugar. So just going to keep going over the top, and I'm going to show you guys what this looks like once we're done here. Got my mesquite rub on. Now we're going to move on to the amber barbecue chipotle. Going to give it a nice dose all the way around. And the brown sugar for the sweetness. All right, Break it up. Let's go right over the top. All right, that's how easy it was to get the pork butt seasoned and ready to go into the oven. So if you want to take a look at what the top looks like, I'll see if I get a good shot here for you. Take it out. That's it. That's how easy it is to get your pork ready to make some amazing barbecue pulled pork. All right, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to grab a beer and I'm going to grab some whiskey and we're going to pour it on the bottom here, and that's going to act as moisture. So as the meat cooks, it's going to combine with the fat that's coming off the pork. It's going to help keep the meat nice and moist, so when we go to shred it, it just falls apart. So we're going to add our whiskey and our beer now to it. So I always like to cook with Corona, so Corona Premier it is for me on this one. So I'm going to pour half the bottle directly into my roasting pan. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 shots. I'm going to use Buffalo Trace whiskey today. You can use any whiskey you want. I have a nice little collection. I'm going to go with the Buffalo Trace today. So I'm going to take 2 shots of Buffalo Trace whiskey, pour 1 on each side. All right, I'm looking at the bottom, and I'm just going to add the whole beer to it. It's looking a little thirsty. So is the chef, so we got to marinate me too. All right, so my roasting pan now contains 2 shots of Buffalo Trace, contains an entire Corona Premier, and my 5-pound pork butt. My roasting pan is looking good. I got a nice little pool going on the bottom of liquids. So what's going to happen is, with your roasting pan, you want to make sure you have a shelving in it. Shelving sits off the bottom, so it's not going to allow the bottom of the pork butt to burn. It's actually going to allow the fat off the pork butt to come off of it as it cooks. So when I'm done cooking this, I'm actually going to have a lot of juice inside of the pan. And I'm going to use that juice once I'm done shredding to combine with my barbecue sauce. So I have this all set to go. I already preheated my oven. It's set at 275. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a slow roast. So it's going to take probably 6 to 7 hours. I'm going to check it at the halfway point. If I need to ladle some juice onto the top of the pork, I will. Chances are I probably won't. It's nice and marbled, so that fat's going to keep everything moist, and it's probably not going to dry out whatsoever. So 275, 6 to 7 hours. That's how easy this is. You throw it in. When we're done, shred it apart, and then we're going to use barbecue sauce. But I always like to use 2 different types of barbecue sauce. We'll go over how we're going to mix that, and then how we're going to shred it, and then how we're going to rebake it with the barbecue sauce on it. All right, so I actually cooked my pork for 6 hours today, and it came out amazing. And pull it out. It's got a nice burnt top to it, nice and crispy. Now remember I said I'm going to take the juice that's left over, I'm going to pour it into a bowl because I'm going to combine that with the barbecue sauce to pour over. So if you look at this, this is just all the juice that I poured in. It's going into the bowl. So this is going to be the fat that melted off. This is going to be the whiskey and the beer that I poured at the bottom. So I'm going to set a bowl of that aside for me. I'm going to mix that with the barbecue, and the rest I'm just going to discard into the sink. All right, as you can see here, pork came out amazing. I'm just going to slide it off the rack. It's already falling apart. Actually, I'm just going to grab it. This came out of the oven, it's a little hot. And it slides right off. And it's already falling apart. That's how tender the pork is. So I'm going to remove my rack now. Come back with my forks. And there should be a thin layer of fat, but not on this one. There's usually a thin layer of fat on the bottom of the pork, but not on this one. That's how lean it was. And it's already cooked away. I got a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape that fat off. As you can see, just very minimal that was on this one. This was a great cut of pork that my butcher gave me. This is it. That's the only fat I had on. All right, so I'm going to separate this, throw it away because I'm not going to eat that. All right, so now that I have the pork out, I'm just going to take 2 forks, and if you can see how nice and tender this is, it just pulls apart. And as you're pulling it apart, you'll be able to see where you injected the mojo from earlier because the seasonings got into it. So the injection and now mixing it up. And then when we add the barbecue plus the exterior rub that we did, it's gonna make for a nice combination and give it some really good flavor. Of course, you always want to take a little bit, give yourself a little sample. Gotta make sure it's good. And it's good. It's really good. All right. So I shredded it up. So aside from joking around that you want to taste it, you really do. You want to make sure you have enough salt and enough seasoning. As like I always say, I'm not a fan of cooking with salt. So the layer of salt you saw me put on earlier was the exact amount. All right, I'm pretty much done now. So I got my pork shredded up. Put a little bit aside. All right, so now that I have the pork separated and I have it all pulled apart, looks beautiful, doesn't that? Okay, I'm gonna grab my pan again, my roasting pan. I'm gonna dump it all in here. All right, now that I have the pork all pulled apart, I'm gonna throw some of that juice that was left into the pan. Now, for today, I'm gonna use Sweet Baby Ray's honey and traditional. So I'm just gonna come in here. I'm not gonna overdo it with the barbecue because what I'll do is I'll put enough in to reheat it and then I'll put it on the side as well. So if anybody wants more barbecue, they can, but try not to drown it with the barbecue sauce. So that's about it. All right, I'm gonna come back in, mix it up again. And then once I get all the barbecue mixed in, shred it up a little bit more, make sure everything is coated. I'm gonna let it sit, and then when I'm ready to eat, I'm gonna put it back in the oven at about 400, and it's just gonna be for a quick heat up. So about 400 for about 15 minutes, and that's all I'm gonna need. And that is it, folks. That's how easy it is to make barbecue pulled pork roasted in the oven. Now, when it's warmer out, I also like to smoke it. And that takes a little bit longer. Usually when I smoke the pork butt to make barbecue pulled pork, it's usually like an all-day event. It's usually about 8 hours in the smoker. But there it is, barbecue pulled pork. And taste it with the barbecue. That's pretty damn good. So there you go. Barbecue pulled pork, nice and easy. Doesn't take a whole lot. What takes the longest is just going ahead and let it roast in the oven for 6 hours. Other than that, give it a try. Hope you guys enjoy it. As always, happy eating.